Sir, my name is Irish Kervey F. Green, together with my co-reporter Alan Narciso and Dormala Pacal. Our topic is all about aridosoils. Aridosoil is came from the Latin word aridus, means dry, containing soil of arid regions that exhibit subsurface horizons development. Aridosoils have no available water during most of the time tend to be light color because of limited addition of organic matter due to poor biological activities. Soil type or zonal of aridosoils. Soil develops in response to the desert climate. So meaning, ang aridosoils is kanang mura siya kanang naa sa disyerto. Kay ingana siya ka-dry. Less than 250 mm of water a year. Journal temperature range high in daytime 45 degrees Celsius and nighttime 0 degrees Celsius. The humidity is low, found 15 degree and 40 degrees north and south of the equator, found only in North Africa, California, and Australia. Arido soils are rich in calcium carbonate, but it is useless for agriculture unless irrigation is available. It is occupied 12% of the land area. There are dominant suborders of aridosoils. The Cyrides aridosoils of cold climate, Salids aridosoils with soluble soil accumulation, Durids aridosoils with SiO2 cemented subsurface horizon, Gypsids aridosoils with gypsum accumulation, Argids aridosoils with clay accumulation, Calids aridosoils with CaCO3 accumulation. Cambids aridosoils with a weakly developed B horizons. There are six characteristics of aridosoils: the color, pH, humus content, structure, texture, and water content. First is the color. Color, some aridosoils have the same pale brownish color, meaning guspad siya nga brown color sa yuta. Others may layered with browns, reds, pinks, and whites. The variation in color is due to living organisms, salinization, weathering, and parent material. pH, aridosols have a high calcium carbonate and sodium concentration, making them alkaline. Ang pH aridosoils is very acidic. Humus content contain little organic matter, therefore little humus. Little humus. This is caused by a lack of plants. So kay ato mga nabasa gaina is mura siya sa disyerto, so meaning lack of plants siya, dili kaayo siya tubuan o mga tanom unless kung irrigated siya na ay mga possible nga mga motubo nga mga tanom, which in turn affects the soil building properties of microorganisms that would normally convert organic matter into humus. Aridosoil is kana siyang mura siya sa disyerto or kanang mura siya kanang naagian og El Nino nga yuta. Murag nag-degrade ang yuta tungod sa less siya og water. Wala kay siya water og ang aridosoil pud siya is dry pud siya na yuta.
Structure. Structure have a blocky structure may also be a platy structure where the clay content of the soil is higher. A platy is a structure made up of soil aggregates that are heaped horizontally on top of one another in the shape of thin plates or sheets. The structural components are polyhedral or block-like, surrounded by surfaces that are flat or rounded and are castings of the pits in the area. Texture have a coarse sandy or gravelly texture because there is less chemical weathering. Coarse sandy soils have large pores, so they allow water to pass through little retention. This coarse sand and dust is found lower mountain slopes. Finer dust and sand particles are blown to lower basin areas, accumulating sand, creating a deep well-drained soil cover. Dust and sand particles are blown from higher mountain areas into the Amazon rainforest lower basin, where they form a thick, well-drained soil layer that allows water to pass through. Minimal retention. These types of soil are more prone to erosion and sandy or clay-rich soils. Soil texture. Soil texture, such as loam, sandy, loam, or clay, refers to the proportion of sand, silt, and clay size particle in the minerals component of the soil. Light soil, for example, is composed primarily of sand, whereas heavy soils are composed primarily of clay. Water content. Low water content. These soils are very dry most of the year. This leads to very little leaching. Low water content also is related to the low humus content because of the sparse organic matter. Soil without a well-developed little layer find it hard to retain water that falls on them. The amount of water these soils are exceptionally dry due to their low water content and dry most of the year. This has very serious consequences. This is negligible leaching. Low water content is also linked to because scarcity of the humus organic material. Soils without a well-formed little layer find it difficult to keep water that falls on them. There are 5 factors affecting arid soil forming factors. Number 1 is climate. Number 2, relief. Number 3, living things vegetation. Number 4, parent material. Number 5, time is climate. Arid soils form in arid and semi-arid regions. Annual rainfall less than 250 mm. General rainfalls in short violent shower. Sun is a high overhead and cloudless, producing temperature range during the day between 20 to 40 degrees Celsius, dropping to well below freezing at night. This climate causes mechanical weathering, especially explosion onion weathering, creating angular screen particles of soil formation. The lack of rainfall prevents chemical weathering from occurring. Strong winds, sandstorms can often remove fine sand particles, leaving coarser and heavier soil particles behind. Arid soils form in dry and semi-arid environments with less than 250 mm of yearly rainfall. The sun is high overhead and clear, resulting in temperature ranging from 20 to 40 degrees Celsius during the day and far below freezing at night. Relief. Relief has a major influence on arid soils. Valleys provide pathways for flash floods, which remove soils in the valley's floors. Water flowing off mountainsides deposits mud, sand, and gravel. Sediments at the base of the slopes in huge fan-shaped deposits called alluvial fans. These fans and sediments are in important parent material rock for aerosols and influence the texture and mineral content in soil larvae. Wood, sand, and gravels. Sediment are deposited by water flowing from mountain slopes at the bottom of the slopes in enormous deposits known as alluvial fans. The texture and mineral composition of the neighboring soil are influenced by fan sediments, which is crucial parent material for the formation of arid soils. Soil profile. The International Union of Soil Surveyors (ISOBOLOGONA) defines a soil profile as a vertical segment of the soil from the ground surfaces downwards to where the soil meets the underlying rock.
Another factor affecting aridisol soil or soil forming factor is living things like vegetation. In aridisol soil type, vegetation is scarce or absent. Why? Because aridisol is classified as a desert soils. At rates of water scarcity then low of organic matter content. And due to high air temperatures and low of soil moisture, because of very high temperature which bacterial stimulate respiration leading to the soil with 10 times lower soil organic carbon and nitrogen than temperate agricultural soils. Okay? Plant that thrives are ground-hugging shrubs and short woody trees. For example of hugging shrubs is yucca or cassava known as kamuting kahoy, cactus, and mesquite shrubs, in other term tornello or screw beans. Why they thrive in desert soil or aridisol soils? This kind of crops is astoundingly effective as retaining water and holding capacity onto it for a long period of time. Then the cactus plant, it has a long roots that go in deep inside the soil for absorbing water, and its leaves that form of spines is prevent water loss through transpiration. Then the stem is covered with a thick waxy layer to retain water. They have adapted with the ability to store water. That is the reason why this kind of crops thrive in aridisol soil or desert soils. Okay? There is rapid growth is vegetation after the terrestrial downpours of rain. So besides of disease, downpours of rain can also determine how fast a crop will grow from seeds, including when it will be ready for harvesting. Okay? Plants and animals are closely linked with many animals and insects using the plant as a shelter and food. So as we all know, also animals are consumers and they all depends on plant for survival. And even human is depend on plant to survive also. However, the scarce vegetation cover is limited and restricts soil building properties of microorganisms, which could convert organic matter into humus. Therefore, aridisols are mineral rich but lack of humus. Aridisol soils or desert soils is not fit for agriculture since it has low of moisture and high in salt content. Then, the nutrients are poor. Because of low organic matter and because the lack of water slow the weathering process that can release nutrients from soil minerals. That's why even desert soil rich in minerals but poor in nutrients content. Next is parent material and time. Influence the color of the soil. So parent material can affect the soil color. It is influenced by its mineral composition as well as water and organic content. Okay? For example, the soil is high in calcium, tend to be white. Then those high in iron is reddish, and those high in humus are dark brown to black. That is the big influence parent material to soil color. Okay? They occur on parent material such as crystalline rocks. The parent material layer is considered the sea horizon. It is called parent material because the upper layer is mostly made up of large rock such as crystalline rocks, also called metamorphic rocks. For example, is limestone, rock jameson, and also igneous rock are crystalline rocks. Aridisols occur on gypsiferous material formed from marine sedimentary rocks on unconsolidated sediments on limestone. The gypsiferous is bearing calcium sulfate to interfere with plant growth. Gypsiferous usually develop in arid and semi-arid areas. Okay. Desert soil that have developed on older parent material are redder in color than soils developed on a younger materials which are often pale gray. So why desert soils that develop on older parent material are red? It because the weathering or oxidation and accumulation of iron-bearing minerals contained in the soil that produce this color, compared to develop on a younger parent material, are often pale gray. It because in a waterlogged soil with a lack of air, iron form in a reduced state, giving the soil gray in color. Okay, we're going to proceed in the next slide. The two processes affecting aradisols. First is calcification. Second is salinization. Calcification. This process involves the buildup of calcium carbonate near the surface of the soil. This can happen when there is a little rainfall in an area and plants pull up water through transpiration. There is then an unequal amount of calcium carbonate found naturally in the soil. So, calcification is referred to calcium carbonate in the soil. So the question is, how does calcium carbonate affect soil? Okay. A higher calcium carbonate in the soils increases pH, making many nutrients less available. As you can see, the picture represent here, it is the mineral calcite, most notably as a limestone, which is a type of sedimentary rock consisting mainly of calcite. Calcium carbonate is the active ingredient in agricultural lime. It can neutralize soil acidity and to supply calcium for plant nutrition. Salinization. In hot areas, rapid evaporation causes salt in the ground to be pulled up through the soil toward the surface. Salt on the surface build up in a white crusty layer. Too much salt near the surface causes plants and animals to die. Too much salt is extremely difficult and expensive for farmers to deal with. Salinization is the build-up of salt near the surface. Okay, salt do not allow plant to grow or absorb moisture. So they also remove moisture already in the plant. Salt also destroys the soil structure. So water cannot easily flow through it, which can cause plant to die from being waterlogged. Salinity affects production of crops, pasture, and trees by interfering with nitrogen uptake, reducing growth, and stopping plant reproduction. Okay, some ions, particularly chloride, are toxic to plants, and as the concentration of these ions increases, the plant is poisoned and die. So, if the level of salt in the soil water is too high, water may flow from the plant roots back into the soil. This results in dehydration of the plant, causing yield decline or even death of the plant. So the question is, what causes soil salinization? Soil salinization occurs when soluble salts are retained in the earth. It's happened because of the improper anthropogenic activities, particularly farming practices. Anthropogenic means human plus generating, from the origin of humanity, or environmental changes originating in human activities. For example, if your town has rerouted water from the river for drinking water, that is an anthropogenic activities. So, how do human causes salinization? Then, the most influential human-induced factors are land use, farming system, land management, and land degradation. In an inappropriate irrigation water and insufficient drainage both causes salinization. As we observe the picture represent here, probably going to be sprinklers or something. So we have water that gets irrigated onto the land. So the large amount of water put a lantern because the more water can be placed on the land, the larger the yield can be. In other words, the faster crops grow and the more crops grow, but the thing is even if it's fresh water, there is still some salt in the water. So this water could be from a waterway or it could be from a rainfall, nor groundwater or an aquifer. So the water is taken from somewhere else and put onto the land. So even though It's fresh water that is still some mineral salt content in that water. So that water goes into the land and gets taken up by the plant, and eventually water evaporates through transpiration. So some of the water evaporates up through or passed up, but only the water that's not the salt. And as well, sun beating down on the land causes the evaporation of the water. So again, the evaporation of the water but not the salt. The water evaporate and the salt remain behind. So we have an increased concentration of salt being left behind. The water that's underneath the ground, when we're putting water on street irrigation to the land is on the crops. We get a rising of this water underneath the ground. For the water, this water table is also dissolved mineral salt. So as the water rises, so the salt rises to the surface. And water evaporates through transpiration and leaving the salt behind, and crops is no longer can grow. So land have a severe salinization and no longer can grow any crops. Because of salinization, plant will die.